Come on everyone, let's celebrate. We are the children of the sun. I can see you when I look into your eyes. We are the same, and we are light, and we are one. And we can make a difference. Yeah, we can be the change it takes to make the world a lot more fun.
Hi there, I'm Cary Ellis, author of 21st Century Superhuman. This is our 21st Century Superhuman show, and today I have with me Robert Michael, who's an awesome friend and I think a brilliant thinker in these powerful times that we're living in. And we are going to talk about the controversial subject of registering or unregistering your birth certificate. Hey Rob, how are you today?
I'm well. How are you?
Good. Good to be here with you again. We have several other videos that precede this one in the last couple of years, and they've had a lot of views, really good stuff talked about on those that I think is foundational to what we're going to talk about today. Mm-hmm. But you keep coming along in your knowledge of this subject, and it's been 9 years, right, that you've been studying, and you've been studying law books and putting things into practice. Why don't you just tell us really quickly about that background so people understand where you're coming from?
Yeah, I, like most people, started waking up. My waking up began 9 years ago, and I wanted to find out how everything works. So I started studying law, and I started seeing all these, what I call freedom patriot groups, and no one was really providing solutions, but yet a lot of information. So I weeded through all the information, went through my own trials and tribulations that were pretty intense at times. And after about 5 years, I came to realize that everything that happens and is happening and why we're seeing a lot of this stuff boils down to control. And who has control and who has the authority to control me, especially in our country, which I like to call the United States of America, not the United States. There's a reason for that too. You'll probably hear in another video. So that led me to where I am today, because I focus solely on, what is the key element that gives us all over, or gives our biological property over to someone to control. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So that's how I got here.
And in my time of listening to you, Rob, I have come to believe that this is really one of the most important subjects that we can understand. If we're really seeking our true freedom in the legal system and the economic system, and how to move that forward. And it's something that I think people have a lot of apprehension about, because there's that feeling of, wow, do I really dare confront the system? How do you address that?
Well, first, if I could, I just want to let everybody know that I don't give legal advice. I'm not an attorney.
Thank you.
I don't promote breaking any laws. I actually promote following the law. It's just the correct law. Certain laws have certain applications. So I'm sorry, I kind of lost the actual question, but I just wanted to preface with that, because
absolutely. No, that's, and so I think, thank you. I think that's really important. And what I was just addressing is the fear that people get of, how do I, confront the system and not make my life uncomfortable or difficult?
Yeah, that was huge in my awakening. So when I began to wake up, I became very fearful of, oh my gosh, I'm being taken advantage of. But the same question came up: how do I confront? So I figured, like everybody else, I got to fight for my rights. I got to stand up. I got to do my thing. And I learned that fighting is completely counterproductive. So anything, if you understand law, it's very plain to see in the law encyclopedia. It will clearly tell you in American jurisprudence that under alternative dispute resolution, that court situations are adversarial. So that tells you you're fighting. Alternative dispute resolution can happen in many ways outside of court, off the public record, and that is a peaceful interaction trying to work out the problems. Now, alternative dispute resolution can come in many ways, but the key to fear, number one, is knowledge, because if you know enough, you can react in a certain way. Well, actually, you don't react, and you're able to think clearly and know what exactly to say and when. And that's really important in all situations.
And we call that responding. So responding instead of reacting, and responding appropriately in a given situation. And
Right.
I love the many hours that I have heard you speak on various videos explaining how this process works. I know that you have a learning course process where you're just sharing what you've understood yourself at your website, and that is
www.truth, the letter N as in Nancy, trust.org.
perfect.
And we're
And
going to be adding more and more to that website. It's kind of basic right now, but it does show you how to walk through certain processes that I've done. And people are more than welcome for a small fee to learn that, follow that if they want. You know, it's totally, obviously, all your choice.
And you have some initial things there that are free that a person can kind of get an introduction to what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, there's a little bit. I think at this point, because I've come so far in the year that we've had the site, that you know, now I have to really add a lot of more explanation, you know, more content, because I think the average person they go there and they're like, what? I don't understand, you know. So that's what we're working on. But some of you that are already in the know, or even if you just want to take a peek, please stop by and have a look.
Excellent. So truth and like Nancy, the N in Nancy, truthandtrust.org, right?
Yep.
Cool. And I'll put that under the video. So go ahead and just start telling us, give us the ABCs of what the birth certificate really is, why we would want to change our status in relationship to it, and then maybe just a light look at how we do that.
Okay, so I want to call it birth registration because it's
Okay.
really what it is. And a lot of us think that, well, we have to do this, number one, and we kind of do in a certain way, but again, that would be digressing into
You
something
mean
else.
we have to have a birth certificate?
Well, yes and no. We have to register our birth, but see, birth registration was done in the family Bible before the turn of the century. And then, of course, they introduced it slowly. But once the banks bankrupted the country in 1930, 1933, they pledged all of the people and the land as collateral to be able to get the banks to loan the United States money. So in order to do that, they needed a pledge of collateral. Well, the pledge is the people. The people are the pledge. Their biological property, their entire body is the pledge, as well as the land. And I would ask anybody that has a home to go and look at your deed in the county records, because you'll find you're a tenant on the land. You're not actually the owner. So if you're the tenant, who owns the place? Even when you've paid it off, who owns it? If I'm the tenant, right?
Wow.
So this all ties in together. So the birth registration became necessary. Number one, because when the United States started using commercial paper, according to the Clearfield Doctrine, when they started using commercial paper, private commercial paper, which means the loans and all of the paper from the Federal Reserve, because they're a private bank, they stepped down from their level of sovereignty to be on par with private corporations. So what that means is they must contract with everyone in the public in order to apply their laws. Because if you sign a contract, you're now subject to the jurisdiction. And this goes back to the 14th Amendment and a jurisdictional principle. So what happened was everyone was, you know, kind of forced, you know, voluntarily forced to register their bodies at birth. Now, because they're functioning completely on a commercial level, they follow what's called the Uniform Commercial Code. All right. I like to say that's their new constitution. And the reason they follow that is, again, because everything has to be a commercial application. So in order for them to really protect themselves from liability, this birth registration was necessary, because what it does, it actually creates another organization. It has your name, so you picture yourself with your name as a corporation, not your body, it's not you. However, you're the responsible party to pay the charges of the corporation. Okay, there's problems with that as well, in terms of why, you know, that's kind of against the law, so to speak.
And so what in this is called the straw man? The straw
That
man.
is the straw man. So
Okay.
when you're born, you're registered, you register your property, okay? And then there is a corporation built off of that called a straw man, which is a fictional entity. It's a fictional you. Even a corporation is called a straw man.
Which, and most people think it's a good thing. Oh, I'm a mom, I just had a baby. I'm gonna sign its birth certificate, right? It seems like the normal thing to do in our culture. It doesn't, no parents think they're doing something wrong.
Right. And it's not necessary that you're doing anything wrong because you don't know. However, what happens is when you register property with someone and you leave that property there, you're actually bailing the property over. So it's kind of like when you go to the cleaners and you give them your clothes, you're giving them your property to protect and enhance the property till you come back and pick it up. Okay. It's also a warehousing type of mechanism. It all fits the same laws.
And so that's being done with us when we're a baby. We're kind of being signed over to be warehoused and be taken care of and
right.
be traded
Now,
against, be collateral for.
right. What happens when you don't pick your clothes up at the cleaners? They become the property of the cleaners. And now the cleaners can do what they want with it, right? But nonetheless, you're still the equitable owner of that property. You're just missing all your life. And then when you die and they put you through probate, they go, oh, look, the owner showed up, but he's dead. So, oh, well, we're going to have to get him for taxes and everything else because his entity here owes all this, you know. And that's really what's going on. It is actually like the country is a large warehouse. And every country with a birth certificate is nothing more than a warehouse. And if you read warehouse law, and you see it like I see it, I look at the terms and apply them over to this birth certificate entity and the commercial terms and how this all works. I'll give you an example. So under the Uniform Commercial Code, under Article 9, Article 9 is the laws for registering liens and things like that and putting liens on property and the filing system. In Article 9, the definitions say, I think it's 9-102A71, definition 71, you can look it up on Cornell Law. There's a definition of a registered organization, okay? That definition specifically says that it is a registered organization is an organic public record that is filed with the state, and then and I'm paraphrasing, this isn't exactly what it says, but that it does say an organic public record filed with the state. So what happens is, what do? They make an organic public record. Why? Because the registrar signs it and seals it, and it's now on record. Then they file it with an agency, and now you have your registered organization. It fits the definition in commerce perfectly. So
Wow.
It could be argued that this thing really fits this registered organization. So if it's in this body of law of commerce where you can place liens and there's leases and warehouse stuff and negotiable instruments and all, then that means this entity plays in that realm, right? So I started putting all those pieces together. And I was like, okay, well, who has title to this entity? Well, obviously not me, because I never showed up to claim it. So the government, it just sits in their files and they figure, well, we control it. And they do, because I never separated myself from being the insurance, the surety for that thing. So I began to develop how to do that. And not just me, there's other people, you know, I learned with a lot of other people. I put a lot of information from
Right.
other researchers together.
Right.
And I managed to claim mine and tell them, hands off, there's no more, you know. And I took that entity once I made my claim on it. And then I said, okay, I'm going to take this entity and put it into a private business trust because it's there to do business. So the best trust, in my opinion, to use is a private common law business trust. Now I have all my records that they're all recorded in a court, not filed, but recorded on the public record, where if anything ever comes up, I go, well, wait a minute, you got to have a contract with me, okay, to control this entity. However, I don't want to contract with you, number one. And number two, I have all the records where I've rescinded every contract from birth. And I've stated on the public record, and I have it all. Everything is documented. So I have quite a defense on my hands. for anything that comes up. Now, that doesn't mean road courts and stuff aren't going to roll right over it. However, again, I've road tested a lot of this stuff. So I'm confident in the fact that I have a superior claim and it can easily be identified and evidenced from my records. And that's basically what I did to claim that back.
So the first question that pops up for me when you've done something like that is, can you still get, and this may not be a subject that we want to go down, but can you still get a passport? Can you still get a driver's license?
Sure.
And maybe you wouldn't want to, but
well, you can get a passport as not the entity. You can get a passport as a non-resident national. Okay, and it's a certain procedure to do it, and you have to have a treaty present. Well, your treaty is the Declaration of Independence, along with your Declaration of Status, which is one of the procedural documents that you record to state your status. That becomes your treaty, and you can fill out the passport application in the correct way. You won't notice any physical difference on the passport, but in the barcode, it lets them know you're not a U.S. citizen, you're a non-resident national. You're an American, not a U.S. citizen. So yes, that's possible. I don't want to say I have a driver's license. We have to remember, who can they license? They can't license me because I have a God-given right to travel. They can only license my entity, which I become the surety for and go, yeah, I'll accept all the charges under your licensing contract. However, because I put it into a trust, now the trust has to deal with all the licensing procedures, not me. I'm just a free man that travels. And if I'm holding that quote unquote license for that entity, that's because I have permission from the trust, but I don't have ownership of the entity, the trust does. So I can't be held liable because I already got my statements and declarations and all that stuff certified that say I'm not the surety. So I don't have ownership. This is all about ownership and lack of.
So let's say I would like to go through this process of claiming the ownership of my birth certificate, taking it out of it being held by this warehousing process that took place. And do you have a place where I can come and learn the steps of how to do that?
Yeah, that's on the website. That's where it's all laid out, pretty clearly. I do step-by-step videos, and I try to tell people what each step is about. However, the substance of the templates that are used, the template documents, is up to the individual to educate themselves on what it means. But I do go over it briefly, but I will have more and more content to explain each fact that is listed in these documents. Okay. So I also feel like I want to state that it's not so much you're going to take ownership of it. You already do have ownership of it, believe it or not. The problem is you don't have title to it. Okay. Right? So you're clearing, picture it like a house. You want to clear the chain of title. You want to make sure you put out notices to the proper parties, because there are proper parties under the law that you have to notify. And it might sound scary, but they're the parties. It's not scary. You have a right to speak to your quote unquote government, which isn't even really yours, but that's another topic. So you notify them and you're clearing the chain of title. You're saying, does anybody have interest in this thing? No, because if you don't respond, you've now agreed that that is mine, and that I have interest in it. However, you don't want to be the owner of it. So you want to move it into some other mechanism. And I use a private business trust. You can use ecclesiastic trust, whatever you want. I just feel that the trust that I use is really powerful because it's set up to do business. And it is set up under religious, quote unquote, beliefs, among others, that protect it. And it's in common law, which is easily laid out in the trust and how it's set up, that it puts the trust is actually like a natural person, not an artificial, which we're all running around like a bunch of artificial people with our all capital letter names and birth certificate stuff, and the list goes on. So yeah, everything, there's a lot of possibilities with that.
So in your teaching process at truthandtrust.org, once you've helped us reclaim our birth certificate, you also have some education on how to get into a trust.
Yeah, how to get that into a trust. Now, we offer a trust, and it's not a penny, it's not pennies on the dollar. I mean, it's people think it's expensive, but when you think about the value of this trust and how you can reproduce it over and over for many other trusts, it's not really expensive.
Okay.
But that's up to people. And we will work out, if somebody really wants a trust, we'll work out some sort of payment plan with them, if we can, and
Okay.
help.
And what about other countries besides the United States? Does your process work, do you think, in a lot of countries, or does a person have to figure it out by their country?
Common law countries are going to be the most applicable.
Okay.
If you're a civil law country, it's going to be a little bit tough. And obviously, communist countries are completely out,
Okay.
unfortunately, at this time. But yes, there are Australians that have contacted me, Canadians, people from the UK, and they're all asking the same thing. And then they're going, oh, yeah, I know this is applicable here.
Right.
So the only difference is we use, obviously, our Constitution, the original one, not ours, the Constitution, with certain protections. You don't have that in other countries, so they have to look for where theirs lie, and create a trust that way. I haven't created a trust for other countries yet, just the one here, that's in the future, hopefully.
So just to do a light review, if I were to follow through on these steps, which I actually intend to do, and reclaim my birth certificate and get it set up in a trust, what would I then have the ability or the freedom of that might not be obvious to someone who hasn't studied this a bit?
Well, nothing is going to look any different. Nothing is going to change. There's no alerts that go up in the system that you're now this free person. I mean, honestly, I may have something next to my name because every time I get pulled over, I get "have a nice day." I had Child Protective Services called on me for some stupid incident that my son was involved in that was actually because of a friend who we're no longer together as friends, unfortunately. But that's a really serious thing. CPS doesn't play around. They want your children. And they called, and I spoke with the woman for 5 minutes and shut her down. She was angry and said, she's going to escalate this and they're going to come after me. And I haven't heard a word from them. So I don't know if there's something next to my name. However, when you do this, what you're doing is you're creating a set of tools. Okay, it's not a remedy. It's not, oh, I'm going to do this and all of a sudden I can go out and, get free money and access these hidden accounts. It's not like that. If you're savvy enough to do some of that stuff, that's great. It can be done. But what you're doing is you're building you're using a set of protective tools. So if anything comes down, you have to know how to use the tools. And again, that's hopefully what I'll be going over on the site in more detail. So in other words, like I was saying earlier, if I get pulled over, just to give you a scenario, I'm always kind, I'm always pleasant, I'm not here to fight anybody, I'm not here to argue. They get my license. Now in the Freedom Patriot community, everybody's, oh, you don't need a license and that's crazy and they don't have a right and blah, 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 blah. Okay, true. But to be honest, I don't want to go through all that. I've got a son, I don't need to be arrested on the side of the road fighting for my rights and all that. So again, when I got the license, it wasn't me that got the license, it's my entity. And I'm the manager of the trust. So I had the approval from the trustees to fill out the paperwork to get this license. So on my license, my signature says without prejudice. And under that uniform commercial code law that they all must follow, that means in contract law that all of my rights, all my common law rights are intact. Okay. And you can find that under UCC 1, Article 1-308. Okay. And that is basically saying that all my common law rights are intact. So if an officer pulls me over, I don't have a problem. Here's the license. Here's the, the registration, all that stuff. Okay, what are you going to do? You're going to give me a traffic ticket? Fine, not a big deal. What's it, 80, 90 bucks? I'm going to pay it because I'm not going to fight it for a year and a half, go back to court, back to court, back to court. By the time you're done, if you even get the thing dismissed, you're going to be spending all that time and money going back and forth to the court. It's not worth it. And then they may slap a $1,000 fine on you in the end. However, if the officer wants to push from there and start asking me questions about anything else, we cut it off. Sorry, I can't give you that. And here, I'll give everyone on this video the key to how to protect yourself. It's very simple. It's not this big mystical thing that patriots try to say all this stuff. You don't need to do that. You just go, I cannot give you any information without counsel or an attorney, if will. I don't use attorney, I use the word counsel, because that's really what the law says. It doesn't say attorney, and there's a difference. So I say, can't give you any information. Nope, we're done. Sorry. Nope, can't get out of the car, can't give you any information, got to speak to counsel, got to speak to counsel, got to speak to counsel. They really can't move without that. If they do, you just keep saying it, and you never give your name. I shouldn't say you, I don't want to give advice. I never give my name, and I never sign anything, ever. No way. Because anything you sign and agree to becomes part of a contract. So you can't sign or give your name. You know, what's your name? I'm sorry, I can't give that to you without counsel. You know, what's your address? I'm sorry, I can't give that to you without counsel. It's private. And believe me, attorneys, top criminal attorneys and stuff will tell you that. Don't ever give information. We're so used to going, oh, I'm in trouble, I better give them my information or something bad's going to happen. No, they're going to intimidate the hell out of you till you give it to them. But there's no law that says you must give them information. And the reason you say you need an attorney is because you're incompetent in law. You don't know what all their little codes and statutes and all say. So you've got to have someone interpret that for you. That's key. So yes, you can, those are the types of things that change when you understand what to do. Now, if it goes even further, you have all your records. So what I would do is if it got escalated and a court sent me a summons, which is usually civil, now this is for civil stuff, I merely send the summons back with a notice and an affidavit done the right way, okay? And I send them, you know, whatever records I don't even have to send them records anymore. I just go to courthouse such and such, a checkbook, page number. Now the due diligence is on you because I gave you notice and it's all right there. And I put it all in an affidavit and send it off. I don't show up in court. I don't do any of that. I don't belong in those courts. They're not for me. They're commercial military tribunals. They're not constitutional courts. So a lot of things change, but you're the one that has to change, not it, because it's not going to change. See?
And so it's a big deal, I think, to take this step kind of out of the system that's been running our lives, our whole lives. And there's a comment that you made to me earlier, which is that when we stop having birth certificates is when we really will have freedom in the system. Or could you say that comment again?
Yeah, I always say, you know, everybody's like, when are we going to get to the point where we don't need money and control and all this? And I always say, when they stop registering live births for financial purposes, that's it, it's over, you know. Until that point, we're still under the same thing. Not saying that they're not trying to dismantle it, but at the end of the day, we're going to have to address that issue because that really is the slavery issue.
Yes. And so I think we should bring this to a close. I really appreciate the conversation and the information, Rob. Could you just do like a 1-minute summary of what we've just looked at? Because
Sure. So again, we're all registered at birth. We're registering biological property, which then turns into a registered organization with our name. All our lives we're taught to repeat our name, first, middle, last, so that we think we're it. The government cannot interact with you as a living being without injuring you. So they interact with your corporation. As long as you keep agreeing to be a US citizen, you're in their jurisdiction, you're under the wrong jurisdiction. So this is about taking property back, claiming your correct jurisdiction, and then having something to stand on to say, no, I'm in peace and honor here and I've done everything honorably. And I'm sorry, I just don't see in the law where you have a right to do this because I've got all the records to show that you don't. So that's basically, in a nutshell, what we're doing.
cool, awesome. Thank you so much for being a free thinker and someone who's made really big inroads in understanding some important things about the law and the system that has held many of us in doing things that we'd rather not be doing for many years. We look forward to freedom for each of us as individuals and humanity as a whole. And I think all of these things they're stepping stones along the way.
Absolutely. And I just want to say that, you know, if you do go to my website and stuff like that, and you're looking at some of my stuff, just bear in mind that everything that I talk about, I've done. So I'm not somebody that's just, you should do this and you should do that. First off, I don't want to tell anybody to do anything. You make the choice, but I have done these things and I continue to do them. So,
Yes.
you know, bless everyone. And I hope that people awaken to the simple points that, you know, begin to help them understand this stuff. because it's really powerful.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Rob, and we shall see you soon.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Century Superhuman, and I know that the answers are inside. Yeah, I am a 21st century superhuman. Now is the time. Come on everyone, let's celebrate. We are the children of the sun. I can see it when I look into your eyes. We are the same, and we are light, yeah, we are one. Hear now, hear my ancient prayer and sing along. We are awakening as one, and we can make a difference. Yeah, we can be the change it takes to make the world a lot more fun. Well, if you're feeling kinda down and you need some inspiration to remember who you are, oh, now, child, please don't frown. You can choose a new vibration, and these words can take you far. I am a 21st century superhuman, and I know that the answers are inside.